The Miata's big changes came last year for 2024 with the introduction of the ND3. So that's the second refresh of the 4th generation. So I'll link my review to that up here in the YouTube skies somewhere. This year I have a 2025 Grand Touring soft top. So I'll talk about what the differences are between this one and that Club RF, as well as the couple of small changes here for 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look. The changes for this year really are pretty minimal. Now you can get the Grand Touring in Deep Crystal Blue Mica. That was previously only available on the Club, and thank God this one showed up in that color and not 90s Camry beige like the last two I had. And then there's the 35th Anniversary Special Edition, which is essentially a Grand Touring soft top with a 6-speed manual, but you get an exclusive artisan red paint color, an exclusive tan soft top, different wheel design, and your tan Napa leather seats have a 35th anniversary logo embossed into the headrest. And there were only supposed to be 300 of those coming to the US, but demand was so high that Mazda upped it to 350 units. The powertrain remains the same as it has been since 2019. That first refresh of the ND is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. I burned the crap out of my hand on this hood. It is a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It makes 181 horsepower all the way up at 7,000 RPM. So a good excuse to wring this thing out. 151 pound-feet of torque up at 4,000 RPM. Your standard transmission is going to be a 6-speed manual, and in fact if you want a 6-speed auto, the only way to get that is in the Grand Touring. Power goes exclusively through the rear wheels, and this thing is so light. In ragtop form, this car is under 2,400 pounds, which is unheard of in 2025. Your next closest competitor is going to be like a GR86 or a BRZ, which is like 2,800 pounds. So still 400 pounds more than this thing, and I'll have one of those coming up if you want to get a good idea of the differences between this one and that one. But fuel economy here, I know you're probably not buying this for fuel economy, but I'm getting about 33 miles per gallon combined, which is pretty good, and I'm not even trying. So the big differences between this one and the one I had last year, other than obviously this one has a soft top, with it being a Grand Touring, it doesn't have the standard aero that the Club gets, the front air dam, the rear spoiler, the side skirts, but the Grand Touring gets auto headlights, auto high beams, and they are adaptive. The mirrors are body colored instead of black, and they do have auto dimming on the driver's side. So if you see an ND with body colored mirrors, then you know that it's a Grand Touring. Plus you get a different wheel design, still 17s here. The only way to get 16s are in the Sport, but all the other ones get 17s, and you get a different design if you get the Club. You get a different design if you get the Club with the BBS package. Obviously that one gets the BBS forged wheels, saves a little bit of weight. And then as I mentioned, the 35th Anniversary Edition has their own wheel design as well. But here the Grand Touring gets the 17s with the machine finish, and you'll notice that the brakes are different than the one I had last year, because that one also had the Brembo pack on it, since the RF Club comes standard with that BBS Brembo Recaro pack. These standard brakes though, still very, very good. We'll get into that during the drive a little bit, but you don't get that same kind of pop of color like you get with the Brembos. And either way, they're going to be wrapped in Potenza S001 summer tires. The soft top is going to be black unless you get that 35th Anniversary Edition, as I mentioned, and it's manually operated. It is super easy. You just flip a latch and then throw it over your head, and then flip another latch, throw it back over your head to close it up and just lock it up. It takes like 1 second. You can do it at a stoplight, not like with the RF where you're sitting there holding the button for 13 seconds and you gotta make sure you don't go over a certain speed. This one, you could literally do this at a stoplight in like 1 to 2 seconds. And either way, the trunk opens up into a measly 14.5 cubic feet of space. This one technically does have slightly more room than the RF, but either way, it's pretty measly. You can get a couple of small duffel bags, and that's pretty much it. The interior is spacious if you live on a submarine, and easy to get in and out of if you've been practicing on a Lotus Elise. Compromises were made, but it's worth it if you can fit. The Grand Touring gets leather seats. These are the optional tan Napa leather that Mazda added last year for 2024. The standard ones are going to be black. I still strongly prefer the Recaros if you get the Club with the Recaro pack, but these have been quite comfortable for the week. No real issues. I just really like those more for aggressive driving. Manual seats, heated. You've got the command center down here. You got the touch for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Those are wireless. You can touch even while moving here. You won't have to use the command center. The dual zone climate, the auto dimming mirror with HomeLink are specific to the top trim. And you've got the bright silver finish around the vents instead of the black that was in the Club. Storage is minimal with one pocket back here between the seats, another one behind the driver's seat, and room for a roll of quarters down here in the center console. Still have the movable cup holders. You got a slot up here, a couple of slots back here. You want to throw them back behind you, or you just chuck them if they're in the way. I love the blue spilling over into here. I didn't love it as much when it was that sand color, but this looks really nice, especially against the tan. It's tight in here. It's not full of crazy features, but there's enough to keep it comfortable and still keep the weight down and keep everything driver focused. When it comes to the drive, there's not a lot about the Miata that hasn't already been said, but when someone hands you the keys to one, you take them and you drive like the wind, like a moderate wind, like a gentle breeze, but it feels fast when you're the breeze. This is one of the most fun cars on the market and one of the best manual transmissions out there. The clutch is light but communicative, easy to grab gears, and the throws are so nice and short, and the track is so tight. It's so satisfying to shift. Low power and short gearing means lots of shifting and wringing everything out of this engine in every gear. As a cop, but I'm only going 40 because I'm in a Miata and it feels like I'm going fast, but I'm not. Seriously, you'd be going 40 in 6th gear with no lugging, and in fact the car will even tell you to do that. No thanks, I'm using the whole tack. But between how low you sit to the road and the noise and the ceremony of wringing out all the gears, it feels like you're going way faster than you are. There's fun to be had at all speeds. Half the time I'm going under the speed limit and I don't even realize it because I'm just having a blast. But we're in this age of horsepower wars where cars are getting to 60 in under 3 seconds, like crossovers are getting to 60 in under 3 seconds. Your car could be going 100 or more and it's just bored. The car is just bored. It's too comfortable. It's too easy. And you really have to be going illegal speeds just to feel anything. This car is fun at all speeds. And when you do get moving at a decent clip, it stops with confidence. I mentioned last year that the regular brakes were pretty good. I was in the one with the Brembos last year, and I have confirmed that this week. I mean, even for the spirited drives, when you start to push it on the street here, these brakes are wonderful. Maybe on the track, there'll be more brake fade as compared to the Brembos, and maybe those will hold up better for that. But if you are taking this on the street, even for those spirited drives when you're pushing the car, these brakes are great. So the big changes which hit last year when it comes to the driving experience are the tweaks to the steering and the new limited slip differential. So the steering is tighter, it has a better on-center feel, it kind of rubber bands back to the center a little bit better than it did in the ND2. And you really kind of have to be driving them back to back to feel that difference. But it is definitely a welcome change, and it feels nice and tight and nice and on center. I love the steering rack in general. It gets you great feel for where the wheels are. It's not Lotus feel, it's not hydraulic steering feel, but for an electric power steering rack, this is great. Then the asymmetric limited slip differential is supposed to reduce understeer coming out of a corner, reduce oversteer going into the corner. And as I mentioned last year, if you try to brute force your way through the corner, like you get on throttle early and just try to power your way out like you're in some kind of high horsepower car, then you can get into understeer pretty easily. Whereas this one is a lot more forgiving if you try to do something like that. Obviously, you've learned to drive the car and you don't have that kind of issue anyway, even with the ND2. But this one is much more foolproof in terms of understeer. Now, if you want oversteer, you can ask for it and the car will give it to you. But I haven't had any issues with it kicking out on me unexpectedly. Another change for last year was previously you could disable traction control, but as with a lot of cars nowadays, it doesn't turn everything off. It still gets involved as it needs to a little bit here and there. But Mazda added a disable traction for the track, which is even less intrusive. Now, I mentioned you can get an automatic transmission in this Grand Touring, but you lose the Bilstein shocks, you lose the strut tower brace, you lose the sport tune suspension, you lose the asymmetric limited slip differential, you lose one hell of a manual transmission. Like, you just lose out on so much of the experience, so much of the fun of this car. For me, for this car, it's manual all day. Now, if you want to daily drive this car, you've got to accept a little bit of punishment. It's loud in here, and this top might as well be made out of paper. They're really close to the road, and the performance tires that are running on the road, those are not quiet either. I mean, it is not quiet. There's no comfort mode, no adjustable suspension, no adaptive suspension. There's one setting, and it's pretty stiff. If you've got a lot of well-maintained highways and you're just cruising along, you'll be fine. But if you're in an area with rough roads, you're gonna feel all the imperfections. It is stiff. Visibility is awesome though, as long as you have the top down. If you have the top up, it's pretty compromised. Technically, there's a window back there. It's a small one. There is blind spot monitoring, thankfully, and you do have the lane shove assist. I've had that off this week just because I don't really like it interfering, but you know, with this car being so narrow, it is a little bit less intrusive than it is with a lot of the other Mazdas. You've got standard cruise control here. As of last year, the auto gets radar cruise as well. There are clearly sacrifices here for the daily drive, but if you can take the noise and you can take the stiff suspension, then the rest of this driving experience is totally worth it. Let's face it, this probably isn't your primary mode of transportation anyway. You probably don't have to daily drive it, but I probably would. I'd put up with it, even on my mostly highway drive to work. I'd definitely do it if I had an all back roads drive. At the end of the day, it's just impossible not to have fun in a Miata. Last week I was in a Maserati Grand Cabrio, which was nearly $200,000 more than this car, had 3 times the horsepower, and I was not even a little bit mad about trading that for this car. The Miata is just so much fun, whether you're cruising around with the top down or banging it down some back roads, some twisty canyon carving. It is just such a fun car. One of the best manuals out there right now, and you can just ring out every gear. You can have a ton of fun without having to go 100 miles an hour just to feel something. If you're not quite convinced on this one and you're looking for a fun manual sports car in the $30,000 to $40,000 price range, stick around. I've got the GR86 coming up in a couple of weeks. But as always, let me know what you think about the Miata down in the comments, whether you'd take the Grand Touring over the Club, whether you'd take the RF over the soft top, whether you take the manual over the automatic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.